Enjoying your summer?
So far so good. Yes, it's
Good.
been a nice summer. Even though it's a little dry, it's been a nice summer.
A little dry. Farmers aren't happy, but the
I
builders are
know,
probably
that's it.
happy.
Well, I think that rain we had over the weekend was a godsend for the farmers because, yeah, some of them were getting marginal.
Yeah. But good building weather, I assume, right? No
Good
rain
building,
days.
yes.
The painters are out there doing their thing. Yeah.
It has been good building weather. Our only problem this year, as with everybody, is the lack of labor to do work.
Mm.
So, and then sometimes also the lack of material, since we've gone from a 6-month schedule to an 8-month schedule because cabinets alone take 6 months from confirmation, and it's
Wow.
just crazy. It's like,
They holding the prices though.
yeah, and typically we don't engage the clients and with the designers and all that until after contract. So it could be a month into contract by the time you get it ordered. So now you're 7 months into construction before you see cabinets, and it takes a good 4 to 6 weeks to finish house after you do that. To set, you got countertops to install on them and plumbing to install on top of that. And it's been a challenge. It's getting worse. That's the strange thing about it. It keeps on getting worse. I don't understand it. But
You are live.
Okay. So it's now 6:30. Thanks everyone for attending the meeting. I'm going to call the Conservation Board meeting to order. My name is Pete Harris. I'm the chair of the Conservation Board for the town of Victor. Tonight we have other board members, Pat Coleman, Matt Matheson, and Tim Norman present. We have 4 requests that has come to the Conservation Board for consideration. And we, on top of our agenda, excuse me, we also have minutes of the last 2 meetings to approve. So we have Jess with us. We're supposed to have 3 other people, yes, but I'm not sure if they're on. Oh yes, James is on. How are you doing?
Okay. Good, how are you guys today?
Not too bad, thanks. So James, I think that you were supposed to be first on the agenda for Valentine.
Yep, that's ours.
Valentine, okay. You care to share what's going on? Do you want to speak about it?
Oh, sure. Do you mind if I share my screen?
Sure.
Whoever the host is gotta enable it for me.
Oh, I'm sorry. Before you start, I just want to remind everybody that the Conservation Board does not make any doesn't approve anything. We are an advisory board to the planning board, so anything that would impact the environment, music conservations, landfill, etc., we would take your request into consideration and give them our recommendations, and then it is fine with that. So I just want to make sure that I manage one of that. Thank you.
All right, let me see if I can get this correct. All right. So what we're back here for this evening, we were at the planning board meeting for this last week, and we're on again with them again next week. This is a project you guys saw, or whoever was on the board a couple of years ago. So I believe, Matt, you were probably familiar with this. So this was Woods at Valentine. This is the residential component to the High Point Business Park PDD that was created coming up on 20 years ago now. So as you can see on the left side of the page here, you have office building 100, 200, and 300, which was recently constructed. I think they're just finishing out some of the interior build outs, but I believe all the exterior stuff has been done for a couple months now. And then as you kind of move clockwise around the arc here, you got section 4, section 3, section 2, and section 1. So what we're looking to do right now is just section 1. So just this lower portion down here. And this project is currently approved, or is approved with a 4 building configuration in this section. What we've done, the project ownership has changed hands earlier this year. So this is now with Commercial Street Partners, who is a subsidiary of Krista Construction. So they working with Rinaldi's. The Rinaldi's still own the office building portion of the project, but the residential component, all 4 phases, was changed ownership. But they did engage both BME as well as Hanlon Architects to keep the original design team together. So as a pretty encompassing update to this, we really have respected all commentary and inputs that we received during the previous approval process, as well as from all the agencies and board members. So we really incorporated everything, fire department comments, landscaping, as much as we could. The planning board last week did have a pretty positive feedback from the project. They liked the new building design and things of that nature. So we are hoping to get final section 1 approval at the planning board next week. So really the main change, like I mentioned, is going from a 4 building configuration down to a 2. It really had to do with the construction of the building. Before, it used to be a 3-story building with a subgrade parking level. So it was effectively 4 stories, 1 subgrade. This configuration here got rid of the subgrade elevation and then put the parking area on the rear portion of the first floor of each of the buildings. So there's like a parking area that runs, north to south through the building, and you actually drive straight through the building. There are some first floor residential units there in the front, and then the second and third floors are all residential apartments. We're keeping the same number of units, same, feel for design. We have a, primary access drive in pretty much the same location, clubhouse up at the northern end, and all private drives. The only thing dedicated to the town is going to be the sanitary sewer, which stubs in from High Point Drive up at the northern end. And then we're going to route down our private drive, and then it kind of kicks back to Valentine Road. So a lot of this site's kind of been pre-graded and things from when this project was constructed, as well as when we started doing some work on what used to be the townhouses, I think back in 2014-ish. They enabled, brought in some of the utilities. There are existing road stubs to this section, where we're going to access off of High Point Drive. And it's pretty accessible if you guys haven't been out there, but it is in the same nature as what we were doing before. There's a slope area from High Point Drive down to our private drive. And then off the back of the buildings, it does continue to slope down into the adjacent property. Let me see if I can switch the share here. So again, this is section 1. I'll go over to like the grading plan here so you guys can look at a little bit at the grades. So north is to the right of the page now. As you can see, this area up in here, there is a little bit of a slope. Most of the slope's created already. We're just going to do a little bit of fine tuning with it, just kind of enable our parking areas with the final design. And then off the rear of the building, we've got a little bit of a flat area for firefighting access. And then it drops off to the property line where it continues to drop off. We are maintaining, some of the perimeter vegetation here to help screen this from Valentine Road. We've provided some photo sims and things back to the planning board, and they seemed acceptable. It's very consistent with what we had currently approved with the 4 building unit. The only kind of addition or change I would say from a engineering standpoint is we have a little bit of increase in impervious area with this section, and it really had to do with the final design of the community center for this. Once Krista Construction kind of got involved, they decided that the center was not large enough to support the close to 300 apartment units that'll be installed at full build out. And I don't believe we ever had a true final design for the community center, even when we were going through this originally. So they've grown this footprint a little bit and then added a second story to it just to add some pool areas, workout facilities, some common areas, some meeting rooms, just other amenities for this area. So that a little bit of increase. So to kind of offset that, we did something similar to what we did when we went through the project a couple of years ago when we added the section 4, which is up behind the other apartments. It's called the Forest Park. It was a different PDD that we rezoned and brought into the Woods project. What we did for that increase in impervious was we designed some additional bioretention areas. So these are located down here at the southern end of the site near the stormwater facility, and they effectively just treat what's needed to provide that offset. As a whole, this project is way above what requirements would be for today's standard. I mean, we're up around 83% green space for the whole Woods parcel still. And one of the central stormwater facilities, not this existing one, but the other one that is in the center area of the High Point Drive loop and then extends under it to the very north portion in the Woods, that's an infiltration basin. So that thing provides an excessive amount of runoff reduction if we recalculated it. But because of that little bit of increase, we still wanted to do something locally, which is why we added these two facilities here. The pond down at the southern end, this is existing. It takes about 100% of this development. It's still consistent with all the original sizing criteria that we did. So this is really just in erosion control and site development. We're going to have perimeter erosion control measures along the property lines where the grade drops off, and then all the slope areas that we're working on, we've got erosion control blankets proposed to restabilize that. And then we've also added quite a number of plantings to this plan from the previous design. I think we only had about 20 trees proposed, but now we're up in the 50 range, just kind of really making it feel a bit more wooded through there. So that's kind of the project update in a nutshell. Like I said, it's pretty much wholly consistent with what was approved a couple of years ago and is currently approved. But I'm happy to answer any other questions you guys might have.
James, I'm not sure if I missed it, but on the eastern part of the property, where we have the second set of grading behind the apartments, where the parking lot is, you said the runoff is going into the adjacent property. But yet you said that the pond is accepting all the water from the property. Is it that there's an extra sort of grading that takes that runoff and take it to the pond?
No, the lawn areas in the rear of the building just run off. There is a storm sewer trunk line that is about 20 feet off the building. That's going to take all the downspouts. It's also going to pick up the inlets from the parking area. So all the impervious surfaces for the project are going to the pond. There is a little bit of green area that is running off, and it runs into over the farm fields and then into that tributary that comes down and under Valentine Road. And that's always been designed like that. There's always been a small portion of lawn that's gone off at that location.
Hey, James, it's Matt Madison. I was just going to ask, overall, is the footprint of the two buildings the same, bigger, smaller than the 4 was?
I hope I could find this. Wes Petty, the town engineer, provided a overlay exhibit. He had it in the meeting. You know what? Hang on. I got the old. So here's the old rendering.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so this is what it used to look like. We've effectively just kind of mushed these two buildings together and then reconfigured, this clubhouse up at the north end.
Mm-hmm.
But you can kind of see it's the same general design. We've added a little bit more architectural curvature to the road to make it feel a little bit more broken up as opposed to more of a linear, monotonous repetition of buildings. And the architecture too for this is, I can show you guys that if you're interested.
Yeah, I saw that. Looks cool. Looks neat.
So here's some of like what the buildings are going to look like. Again, really broken up, a lot of architectural features, really trying to make something that isn't just a cookie cutter, apartment unit. These really are meant to be very nice, flat glass. So here's kind of like the parking garage entrance at the first floor. Is what the back of the building looks like. There are no balconies on the rear of the building either. That was a change that we incorporated from some fire marshal comments because they were worried about accessing them from the rear of the building. So there are no more balconies back there.
Okay. So Keith, I'm not sure what else we need to comment on. I mean, I'm not sure what's
except
else
for where they merged the two buildings. I don't think the footprint has actually changed. They did do some additional waste collection, which is nice to compensate for the thing, and then they made the clubhouse bigger, which really has nothing to do with what we are concerned about, but it's still nice to see that is going to get consideration.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that I wasn't sure of the answer was the runoff, because he just mentioned it was going to the adjacent property, and I was like, okay, fine, so who's going to be managing that? When it's actually going to be caught and do street? So that was the only thing that kind of raised a flag at me. Other than that, I think I don't have any concerns.
Yeah, it looks like they're adding, almost doubling, sounds like, or more than doubling the amount of trees they're planning. So
I think we were 20, now we're like around 56, I believe, of the numbers.
Yeah, almost tripling. Cool. Those are all my comments. Yeah.
Pat, you have anything?
My biggest concern was that runoff, but James, I feel it seems like you guys are addressing that pretty well.
Yeah, this is a pretty big watershed from the original analysis, a couple 100 acres. It includes all the office buildings. One of the office buildings comes to this pond too. So it's kind of a big integrated thing. So, the stormwater components were built when High Point Drive was constructed. And then they've kind of just been sitting there and not, using the full capacity that's been available to them. So we're excited to finally get this project in the ground. It's been a interesting couple of years over with the COVID stuff, kind of delaying everything and adding all the unexpected costs. So
makes sense. When do you think you'll break ground?
They're hoping to break ground as soon as possible. So if we get approval next week, we're hoping to kind of wrap up the rest of the municipal, administrative stuff over the next month, and then hopefully break ground later this fall.
Great. Yeah, no additional comments on my end. Looks good.
Tim?
Yep, I agree. No comments at this time.
So that being said, James, we have no concerns regarding the changes, and that we are comfortable with what we've seen.
Perfect. Well, if any other questions come up, if you guys think of anything, feel free to reach out. I'm happy to have a discussion, answer any questions, or do a site walk if that's something you're interested in too. So
sounds good.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Well, hope you guys have a great rest of your night, and I'll see you soon.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, James. You too.
Take care. Okay, next on our agenda, we have Willis Estates. They wanted to come forward to discuss some amendments to the conservation easement. Do we have from Willis?
Yes, the conservation easement on Willis Hill Estates. And I probably would also like to share my screen at some point to illustrate a couple of things. But basically, we had two different easement descriptions there intended to kind of encompass the largest parcels, that were 10-acre parcels along Strong Road. And we thought, well, they're 10 acres and we might get people that want to do not only agricultural, but equestrian type activities. So we did allow in the conservation space some of that agricultural use. In the other conservation areas, which were conservation B type, It handled the open field area in between Strong and Willis that would be south of phase 3. And the other parcel that was on the east side of phase 2. So if you look at that slide there that you have up now, that's the conservation B area. The yellow area is the one that we would like to revise. All the other hatched areas that you see that are labeled conservation area A are to the west of that, behind the Strong Road parcels. And also there's one behind the lot 223, which is off there to the furthest north lot there on phase 2. And that hatched area was conservation area A. It really, I guess at the time that we were doing these, we were most concerned with farmland adjacent to phase 3. And we were thinking, well, maybe people wouldn't want farmland there and all that. And so we restricted. The principal difference with conservation B was that it was restricted to residential gardening instead of agricultural use. And then we had the owner, we've subsequently sold lot 204, which is the one that contains all of the yellow space in phase 2. And he made just a simple question, is that, I have a lot of acreage, and I think he was thinking about the utilization of the trees that are there. They're coming from the Kettle Ridge Farm over on Fisher's Road. They own that now and do some maple syrup activities. And anyway, he wasn't so much that he asked for a specific use, he just questioned the language. And then I looked into it and found that conservation area B on phase 3, we were already substantially in violation of that, because we've encouraged that to be agricultural use. And so what I was in that area, because all of the owners that we have sold so far, which is the 3 of the 4 new lots along Strong Road have been sold, and they have all agreed to put the conservation area back into agricultural use. And one of the carrots for that is that big yellow area, the B, that's south of phase 3, that also is adjacent to that. And so all of that area and along Strong Road behind it and the yellow area now is being farmed. So I realized that, well, I guess we are in violation of that conservation area B language, because it said just to only be restricted to residential gardens and not agricultural. So bottom line was, I discussed it with Kim, and I thought the easiest thing would be to do is to just take the residential A open space description and eliminate the few verbiage in there that dealt with livestock and buildings. And that was that, I don't know if I saw the edited version of that, but basically there was very strict, right. And so basically we eliminated the idea of having equestrian usage and just limited the use to agricultural, but not livestock. So the striking there, I think there was that on 8B, there was a language change, and then down in 12, item number 12, there was a change. So there would be the other, it actually said livestock could be used before, and now we say there should be no livestock. And that production of trees or crops for human consumption was the only other change in that, I believe. So it seemed easiest rather than to, because some of that wording was in the A already, rather than try to revise B, we just limited A to agricultural use. So it would allow now, as I look closer at phase 3 and the depth of those lots, I decided that it really wasn't a big deal to allow that field to continue to be farmed. which this new language would do. And also with a large acreage behind lot 204, although I don't think it certainly is not going to go off into an agricultural use like in plowing and planting fields, but I think it could be for production of potentially maple syrup or something like that, because there are maple trees there now. So it was trying to simplify it, and mostly address the fact that we are already in violation on the conservation area B behind phase 3. We've allowed farming on the entire parcel there of phase 3, which I say I don't own, we only own the white section there of that map. The yellow section of the map is owned by the original, the homestead parcel, which is lot 5 of that first phase. But they have allowed that to be farmed by the same farmer that's farming behind the strong road lots. Ultimately, there's a good portion of phase 3, I would say north of the street, that's mostly not farmed now. And the portion south of the street in phase 3 is mostly farmed now. So the farmland will be curtailed a little bit once we put in phase 3 street, but the farming that is currently being done there would not be in violation with this revised statement anyway. So that's the short story. We just wanted to kind of allow greater agricultural use of those 2 large yellow areas rather than restrict them to only residential gardens.
Can we go back to the conservation easement, the thing number 13?
I'm sorry, the conservation, say that again?
The conservation easement language, the one that you scratched or edited for review.
Oh.
Yeah, no, back to number 13.
Which paragraph?
The next, number 13.
13. Yes, all it said, agricultural production of trees or crops for human consumption. We struck livestock, assuming that it was not going to be livestock consumption, that would be more what they are. I don't know if that maybe that means something. I don't know. I mean, right now, all the crops that have been out there have been either, some kind of grain crops or soybeans or corn. Admittedly, maybe corn, the certain types of farm corn are for livestock consumption. So I think maybe I should rethink what I said there about livestock consumption. I guess the corn fields that we see dotting the horizons generally are probably for livestock. Sweet corn is also grown, but for human consumption. But that I didn't mean to restrict the use of corn crops, admittedly. But
that was a little misleading and very
right. That should be revised. I think it's as simple. It could just be agricultural production of crops for human or livestock consumption, which would be more in keeping with what farmers do offer. Admittedly, some of their I guess a clover crop would be for livestock consumption, and certain corn crops would be for livestock consumption. So clearly I should modify that, and I apologize for not thinking about that.
Yeah, outside of that, I mean, I don't have any problem, I don't think, with it being used for agriculture as opposed to just, personal. So, but I don't see an issue with it.
Pat?
just gonna say same here. I think Jeff would probably be well received. That's been farmed for quite some time,
Right.
you know.
Well, that was
Nice to
the
see
idea.
that kept.
The idea would be to allow it to continue in the use that it's even happening now. Again, it was an oversight. I had kind of encouraged the homestead buyer as well as the people that have bought the larger homes along Strong. I said, you know, the conservation areas right now are in crops. Do you want to talk to the farmer about having them continuously farmed? And they've all cooperated with that. So it has worked. There's a, you know, I don't know what he is reimbursing them, but they do have lease agreements and there is some kind of recovery, I guess, of maybe it's used to supplement taxes, I guess. But the main difference is that as I'm looking at the language for the, I mean, the other was much more restrictive and principally the fact that it was only going to be in, there shall be no plowing, disking, tilling, or cultivation of soils, except for the residential gardens. So clearly the B was, and again, I think our concern originally was the agricultural use so close to those homes. But after looking at the distance and after looking at the fact that I think if that large portion of phase 3 weren't allowed to be farmed, then the farmer probably wouldn't be just doing the portions behind the Strong Road lots. So it probably gives it an extra 30 acres or something like that.
So just from my perspective, how long have they been doing this farming? I mean,
for a long time. I mean, that I think that field has been into crops for as far as I can remember. I mean, it's before us, Carol Anderson and her husband owned it. He had a private plane and there was a small area of it that was a grass field and then they farmed around it. But yeah, that land has been continuously farmed for decades, I imagine.
You almost admitted to say it should be grandfathered in just by default of the existence.
Right.
Land has been in. I agree with Matt. I would just think that the verbiage can be tightened up a bit, so that it doesn't create opportunities for conversation, all the tilling and stuff like that. I mean, because I think I'm not a farmer, but I think at some point in time they will have to do some of that stuff for
right.
Just for their agricultural stuff. So to say no doing it except for sometimes makes it a little bit, misleading. Not with the intent of changing the thing, but only that we have no objection to allowing it to continue because it's been that way for so long. Then to change it now would a little bit quote unquote unfair to the farmers who've been doing it for years.
Right. Well, that's true. And again, I hadn't really thought about it until the owner asked me to clarify the utilization. And I realized that we were already, or at least the owner on 1025 Strong Road was already in violation technically. But they have not put any additional land into cropland, but what was in cropland almost entirely is still in cropland. We put a couple acres of lawn for each one of those sites along Strong Road. But other than that, the balance of the properties and all of the conservation areas have been farmed.
So I think the one thing we can probably say is that we will not increase the amount of quote unquote farmland, but just that they continue the existing acreage.
Continue the use of agriculture, yes.
Existing acreage.
So we continue the agricultural usage that exists, yes.
Yes.
And I think that the only language I realize now that I should change, it would be that the production could be for both human and livestock utilization. Because there are certain crops, clover crops and corn crops that are specifically for livestock.
Tim, what are your comments?
For the lot we're discussing now, I agree with you guys. I'm trying to think through the maple syrup farming and more specifically, the language that says that a structure is allowed for production. Just that I assume like the retail type establishment that he has in Fishers is not what we have in mind with that language. And I think that the language as it exists would preclude that happening, but just sort of wanted to bring it up and give your guys' thoughts.
Yeah, admittedly, I'm reading into there have been no discussions of what they wanted to do. I think it was just questioning how restrictive. I believe that this language would still be restrictive of use and retail sales and anything else, but
Yeah.
we can certainly tighten it up more if it needs to be. I don't have any problem with it. I guess the intent was that it could be used for agricultural purposes and not strictly, because the other language in the residential gardens was very restricted. I think there must be language in terms of no clear cutting and all that good stuff.
Yeah, it does allow limited clearing for associated with installation of agricultural land and so forth. But
well, I think that I think the topography would generally prevent that. I don't. That other parcel is not agriculturally utilized now. It's mostly wooded. There's some maple oak, and there's some equally there's some wetland areas to it too, which are not going to change one way or the other. It wasn't my intent. My intent was to try to just make it simple. So,
Right.
to just say that there's two large acreage areas here that realistically that we could allow agricultural use for. But if there were other ways we can do that, I don't have any problem with it.
No, I didn't. I'm not overly concerned. I was more just talking out loud if there's, if we should be concerned, but I think as it's written, I think a lot of residents like the agricultural roots and we're continuing that. And if, I don't want to read too much into his comment about the trees, but that was just my thought. So I'm okay with the proposed changes.
Okay. That being said, I think we just want to make it a couple of things we want to just capture in the minutes that the Jeff is going to tighten up the language and revisit, submit back for our review.
Okay.
We also want to make sure, including that, is that we just a note, just for records, that they can use the existing acreage as has been in the past, but not to increase the acreage to do anything else, for the additional usage. And that we don't think that is a problem as long as they continue doing what they've been doing in the past. Pretty much in summary.
Okay. Well, I will. I'll send a redraft to Kim just to clean up a couple of things and then let me know if that works.
Okay.
Okay. Well, thank you for your time this evening. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Okay.
All right.
Thanks, Jeff.
Take care.
Have a good
Thanks,
night.
Jeff.
Bye-bye.
Next on our agenda is the Vandenberg minor subdivision. And they want to subdivide the parcel into 3 lots with existing housing. Would that be you, Link?
No, I'm here for Southgate 3.
Okay.
I don't know if they're not here, if you want to, whatever you want to do.
Who do you have for that project? I'm not seeing anybody else.
No, there's nobody else.
Okay. All right, Link, then let us jump to your
All right.
one, which is the Southgate.
Yeah, I'm back for another Southgate. I don't know. Can I share my screen? Yep. All right. Can you see that?
Yes.
You got it? Okay. So Southgate 3, I'll go up to the cover sheet here. Southgate 1 is right across the street, sort of on the north. Southgate 2 to the south. This is Southgate 3, sort of adjacent to the Auburn Trail. This was always the 10 lots that we had from the overall cluster plan, but I think we've done some improvements with the plan here. I don't know if you remember when we were here for the original cluster, it looked like this. We were doing a one-sided road all along through there and then bringing the drive back out. Once we got into the design and looking at that property, we decided that we didn't really like making that connection with the grade changes. There's an existing pond in there. So when we went to do our design for our project, we revised the 10 lots and clustered them more on a cul-de-sac, sort of similar to what we've done in the other couple sections. That allowed us to save this existing pond here, sort of keep this whole landscape buffer along the trail. We're showing the parking area that the trails in the town that we sort of talked about during the preliminary overall process for Southgate. And then, our intent would be actually, we want to discuss with the town about just offering the open space area to the town for that adjacent to Auburn Trail with that parking area and everything in it. We're showing the 10 acres. We're showing the 10 lots. We're showing, trying to cluster them. We're keeping them sort of just in on grade here, and then trying to, maintain the woods around Auburn. I think it's quite a bit better plan than what was originally sort of shown on the sketch plan. And then we also are doing an infiltration pond. We're into the stone area there, so we're actually able to infiltrate all our stormwater, bringing the sewer in there near the water to bring that in to serve the lots. Water coming off of East Victor Road as well. And right now we're in preliminary. We're going in front of the board here, I think next week as well. That'll be the first time we're in front of the planning board. So I guess we got in to talk to you guys to see what your thoughts are on our plan. And I don't know if anybody's walked it or anything, but you might have, if you've looked at it or walked it, it might help envision sort of, I think, why we came up with this plan the way we did. Sort of thick up through there, and I think it's we're able to maintain a better buffer and things like that. So that's sort of the intro to the project, and I think I can help answer any questions. All the lots and everything, it's all standard with the same houses, the same lot standards, everything that we've done in section 1 and section 2 for Southgate. So.
Link, it's Matt Madison.
Hey, Matt.
Excuse me. So along East Victor, are you clearing along there? So I see the 2 home sites now that are along East Victor, and then up in the northern end, I think it's north, right? We're facing. looks like you haven't touched anything. So is that what your intention is, to leave it like that? So
Yeah,
in essence, from the road, you barely would really see much of anything.
On the north side, you're not going to see probably anything. You're going to see something near the entrance, because
Yeah.
we're clearing here, but we're also berming these to try to buffer them from the road. So it's just these two that we've tried to buffer them. We've tried to leave trees here as well. We've tried to leave sort of as much as we could to buffer along. And then once you get to the north, yeah, I mean, you're going to have 200 foot of wooded area up here.
Gotcha. So the two home sites that do back to the road to East Victor, are they, I see looks like pretty good grade change. Are they higher than the East Victor or lower than East Victor?
Let's see, that's 660. They're a little bit higher.
Okay, a little bit higher, and it looks like it drops off.
But then the road drops off, and then yeah, they're a little bit higher. But then this berm is 10 foot above, sort of grade of this house. So we're also like we're filling for the road, and then we're berming up there to 670, and that house is at 664 there. So 6 foot on the front one, and the back berm is at like 672, which is about 10 feet. 9 feet higher. So we're trying to berm to block them as well.
So you're going to clear it's basically just scrub brush, I think, right? You're going to clear all that and then berm and then plant just grass or wild something. What are you going to plant on that?
Well, we're actually not clearing that because the existing tree line is sort of, I guess we're clearing for one of the lots, but the first lot is out in the open area. So because that's sort of the existing tree lines there. The second lot's in a bit of a clearing, and a lot of the first 2 or 3 on the other side look like they're in the open, and then we get into the wooded area. But then we also did a landscape plan. So let me see here. Get to that one. So right now we're just doing plantings along the road, and right now I think it's just we got a seed mixture for the bioretention area, and I don't know exactly what we called out for the berm, probably just a meadow mix.
Okay. And is that going to have any kind of easement, or is that going to be mowed all the way back to the road?
The easements are, let's see here. So there's just utility easements along
Gotcha.
along East Victor. So there's a 10-foot sidewalk, not a sidewalk, it's a water authority easement. I think sidewalks on the other side. So we focused the majority of the easements on the north and along the trail and along the east and then to the south here.
Okay.
So this is
and I see your lines. Yeah, those will be easy to mark.
So this is where we sort of focused, and then we came down, and then we bogged around the parking area. I guess that's something we'll probably work with the town more on, to whether they, if they wanted the parking area, that was sort of the trail committee's thing. They wanted a few spots there, and then we're showing like a connection to the trail, and then we're just showing we're just breaking the conservation easement sort of around that area.
Okay.
But we're showing to meet the 50%, and basically we put the majority of it, by clustering it with the cul-de-sac, we were able to sort of put the majority of it along the trail, which we thought made the most sense,
Yep. No, I agree. Okay. And you've started clearing in there, right? It's not done, but you started some clearing in there, I think.
I don't think so. I think they just cleared to get in there to do some test pits and stuff.
Oh, gotcha. I'd love to do a site walk. I don't know if the rest of the committee would like to, or if they don't, and we have permission to go, I would walk it myself.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that pond's in there too, that, originally that road was sort of blasting right through it. And we went out and looked at it and we're like, let's leave that, so.
Good. Thank you.
So I'm with you, Matt. I think I'd like to walk it just to get a better appreciation. Link, how much trees, what kind of square foot of tree that you're removing to accommodate the new construction? Because you said you'll be back at 50% green space when all is said and done, or thereabout?
Yeah, we're still meeting the 50% with the conservation easements. I'm not quite sure how much of that is. I mean, most all of this wooded area is in, we basically tried to match that conservation line with the wooded areas that we're saving. So, and down here too, we were trying to save some of the wood. So we just sort of tried to match the easement areas with the wooded area. If you were asking about the types of trees out there, I guess I'm not sure. We'd have to go out and walk around.
Yeah, any night this week. I know it sounds like, I think you said you're before the board soon.
Well, we're preliminary. We got to do preliminary and final. So
Okay.
we're just in front of the board the first time next week for preliminary. So I don't think we have to get it done before next Tuesday because I'm sort of not around this weekend. But I could do it, I could do it during the, let's see. I could probably do it. We could probably do it before that. Well, I don't want to do it before the meeting. I'll be all sweaty, but I can do it next week, probably Monday or Thursday, or we could try to do it. We could try to schedule something. We could probably work on that offline, but I go walk it with you just so you can see what we're trying to do,
Okay. I'm definitely interested in that, and I can make Monday or Thursday work.
Okay.
And yeah, we'll take it offline, I guess. I'll hold the rest of my comments until then, if we could. I mean, other than generally, I like the change that you made. Looks like there's less home sites, right, than you had initially, or are they just clustered? Looks like a few less.
No, it's the same number. It's 10
Is it?
lots.
Wow.
It's just we didn't extend the road all the way around, which didn't
Yeah.
make a lot of sense. Because if you look at this, next to this pond, that there's like 30 foot of grade there. So we would have had to like blast through this whole hill. And then, we have quite a bit of, we have some grading in to do this cul-de-sac. Like we're putting all of these houses on fill or walking them out. But we were able to keep from having to disturb that pond and do all that grading coming in off of near section 1, which it just seems to make. And we looked at both directions, and this seemed like the better way to maintain, some of the wooded area off the trail. It just seemed like the better way to go to try to keep that pond and the woods near the trail.
Yeah, I agree. I think I like this plan better than the last one. Thank you.
Tim?
Yeah, I mean, I'm with Matt. I support a site walk. I couldn't make Monday, but I could make Thursday. But in general, I see no big issues with what Link is proposing.
Same on my end, what he said.
Link, I assume
Thursday
it's
works too.
Water's going to
Sorry,
move
Matt.
to the pond that's already there. I'm sorry, Pat, I talked over you.
You're good. It's okay.
Yeah, basically the drainage is a little weird. We can walk it when we're out there.
Okay.
But, across the street for Southgate 1, we were in the gravel pit. So we were able to use that for the infiltration. We've got the same gravel where we are with that infiltration basin. And based on what it does today, it looks like nothing leaves the site. It all just infiltrates there in that gravelly area. So if anything ever ponded out, it sort of would go where this line is where I'm showing, which looks like it goes down and towards the trail and goes north to that culvert that we put in a culvert there. But that being said, the way we designed it, like that would only be like in the case of a emergency or if something clogged or something, because right now the infiltration, we don't see anything leaving the site. And so I think it's just sort of infiltrating there, which is weird because there's a pond, right to the north. But the soils over there are different. So that's why we had the geotech out doing test pits and infiltration testing everywhere to sort of figure out where to put this where it made sense. So we're going to drain the whole road, pipe it to that infiltration. We're going to pre-treat it in this pre-treatment, and then it discharges into that infiltration. And then we built in an overflow. If it ever overflowed, it would continue to go to the north and down East Victor Road, and then it ends up down by the trail, which is where the pond from Southgate 1 goes. But the pond is sized to take 100 year and not get close to leaving. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a very good selling feature for the new phase, that we actually have a backup plan in case that reservoir overflows and to create disruption to the other areas on the other side. So that's pretty good.
Yeah, I think we got to make sure we add an emergency route in case something happens there.
That being said, I'm good. I don't have any concerns. We can see if the planning board, based on our response, have anything else that they want us to address. We would still like to do the site visit and then give our final comments then. So the fact that you're only going to the planning board for the first time, you still have some room to get some additional comments from us, so we can give all our final comments after we do the site walk sometime next week, once we're able to finalize on that date.
Sounds good. Yeah, we're gonna, like you said, we got to do preliminary and final for this one. So, and I'm good with us working in the next couple of weeks on getting us all at a site walk then.
Okay. So
Thank you.
Touch base with Amber.
Okay.
That's
Coordinate the walk then.
Yeah, that's the person who supports our board, and schedule that, and then we can provide final comments there.
Okay.
Good luck in your meeting on Monday or Tuesday, next Tuesday. You meet the planning board, right?
Next Tuesday's planning board, right?
Okay. Do you have any other questions for us?
I'm good if you are. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. You have a good night.
You
Thanks,
too.
Link.
Thank you.
Bye for now.
Bye.
So Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, the fact that that person, well, there's nobody from Vandenberg minus subdivision, we put this off to the next meeting when someone is able to speak on it. That's what we do, right? Or should we still discuss it?
Yeah, I think we go either way. I mean, it looks super simple, right?
Yeah.
House in the middle of the property, and then just gonna carve that out. Each one is like what, 7 or 8 acres.
Maybe put it in 3 lots.
And they're not moving any dirt. They're not they're not changing any water. They're not taking any trees down. So, I mean, I was gonna have virtually no comment or issue at this point, not just subdividing it, right? Once they start, if someone buys it and starts building, then we'll talk, but it seemed straightforward to me. So the middle property, right? The middle property is the one that currently has the house and barn and greenhouse or whatever on it. And my only thought was it looks like there's a driveway that goes over to the lot on the top, at the top of the screen. I assume they're going to move that or change that or somehow cap it or keep it onto the middle property. So I was going to ask them about that, but it's not even really part of our purview anyway, so I guess it doesn't matter.
Well, the fact that the acreage is large enough to not make it an issue in terms of the subdivision or what is being considered farming, anything like that. And all they do is subdividing. There's no request for construction or nothing else to be considered, just to
Right.
split it into 3 lots. No intent of what they want to do. So at this point in time, it's pretty much. If we want to cut up into 3, then we go ahead and cut up into 3. That's as far as we can do with respect to our involvement in that request.
Yep.
Tim, do you have any concerns on that?
No, I mean, it kind of is reminiscent of the Neal or O'Neill kind of subdivision, but nothing to kind of do at this point. We'll cross that bridge if and when the other 2 lots kind of come before us.
Pat, what about you?
Same, pretty straightforward. So nothing at this point.
So we're just going to put on the minutes, based on what was presented to us, the Conservation Board has no concerns as there was no request for any kind of construction, removal of trees or soils or any disruption to the existing place. So basically, if only when you subdivide the property into 3, there was no concerns on our part for this time. Okay, so we have the minutes of the last 2 meetings to approve. Matt, I don't think he was at the last one, but the first one.
Right.
You were in that one. And I think Tim and Pat, you were there. That's the one of, I'll tell you what that is.
Yeah, which one do you want to start with, Keith? The one that I was at two times ago?
Yeah, so we have the one from June 7th and one from May 17th.
Oh, right. So, I mean, May 17th, I had already looked at, and I think we were ready to vote. We just didn't have enough folks on. So
Right.
if we've got enough folks on to vote, I make a recommendation, we approve it.
I think we do. We have a second on that?
Second.
Okay. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? May abstain? Okay, so minutes are approved for May 17th. Then we have the minutes of June 7th. Were you there, Pat?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I looked over them before. I didn't have any modifications, edits, etc. But seems like it was a long time ago too. So
Yeah, I think we had some dialogue via email on comments for that. I don't think there was much. The dialogue was very short. Tim, were you there for that meeting?
I was there, yep.
And I was going to say, June 7th, I would have been at as well, I believe.
yeah, says
Because
you
it
were
was
there.
later June that I missed. So June 7th, I was at as well.
Is that the one where we were questioning and we were actually off because of the holiday?
No, that Pat recused from the May meeting. Matt chaired the 6/17 meeting, I think, because Keith was.
That's the one that I wasn't there. Okay.
The only comment I had, I'm trying to find exactly where it was, just something minor. On page 4 of the 6/7 draft minutes, Mr. Coleman believed that the barn structures came before the board because of their size. It says over 100 square feet with a comma. I think it's supposed to be 1,000.
Yeah.
Good catch.
Other than that, I'm good.
Cool. So I'll make a motion that we approve them.
I'll second that.
With the changes. All right. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody, oh, there's no one to disagree.
By default.
Thank you very much. Let us approve. Wrong table. Does anyone have anything they want to bring to the table?
Nope, not me.
You all set? Tim, you all set?
Yep.
I think at our next meeting, we can discuss the newsletter. I think there was an email going about the newsletter that was never done. Something, so we can probably say that for another meeting. All right.
Sounds good.
Can I get a motion to end the meeting?
I'll make the motion.
In a second.
I'll second it.
All right. So the meeting is closed at 7:34 p.m.
Hey guys, if
Awesome.
next Thursday works